Hi, this is Ant from Speakerstack Music. In this final video we're going to apply some final finishing touches and mastering effects to our dance track that we've been aiming to create in 100 minutes. So the first thing I'm going to do with all mixing and mastering is just loop a section of the music, which we do by dragging these parameters along and making sure this little icon at the top is clicked here to loop that. That means that will just get, we're playing essentially the loudest part of the song back, and I mean it's all pretty loud, but that's what we're determining as the loudest part. So I'm going to loop that section. I'm going to go into audio effects and put a spectrum. Let's just get it in the right. And put a spectrum on the master channel. This is so we can get a sense of where the frequencies are coming out. I'm just going to lower the master volume a little bit, just to stop it clipping on that section. So I'm going to make some changes to each of the instruments in turn. First thing I'm going to do is have a quick play of it just to see how it sounds. Okay, I think the guitars could do with coming up a little bit in the mix, so let's just go to the mixer section and turn both of those guitars up. Let's give that a blast. Great stuff. The next thing I'm going to do is just take some more of the bottom end off that first guitar. On the second EQ8, the one that we used to apply the filter sweep to, just roll that back. Just put a high pass filter on that. Let's see how that sounds. Sounding pretty good. And then on the second guitar, just to kind of accentuate that difference in tone, I'm going to just roll that second point of the filter, the EQ spectrum. Just increase the gain on that just slightly. Let's just see how that sounds. Great stuff. So again, just distinguishing those guitar sounds a little bit more. Now we're going to work on the structure of the track. I think we're going to go for a traditional kind of trance track feel for this, and I'm going to take all the drums out for the first few sections of the song. So that they're kind of coming in a bit later on as we progress. We're actually then dropping a kind of an intro section into the song. And then I think we'll have a bit of an intro with the snare there. Just have a bit of a build up with the snare before the kick comes in. Let's just see how that sounds. Great stuff. I think we also need to have the snare coming through a little bit more in the mix. So I'm just going to roll off the snare at that frequency range, but actually just increase the volume of the snare. So it's cutting through slightly in the mix. Fantastic. And then I think we'll have a section where the drums, I think this middle bit here where the drums come out and we have a bit of a build up again. Again, let's just drop the drums in for a little bit and then have a break. And this is how kind of trance tracks work. So essentially what we're doing is we're building up with an intro, then we're launching into the idea, and then we drop out again to rebuild up, and then back into the final section of the song, which is essentially a repeat of that same pattern. Let's take the snare out of that. Okay, let's have a quick listen to that and see how that's sounding. Okay, so the effect that we have, that rolling kind of drum beat that we had, kind of delaying off, isn't quite cutting through. So let's just have a quick look at that. And I think the problem is because it's set up quite in those high frequencies. So let's just roll that back and see if that makes a difference. Fantastic, that's just cutting through in the mix a little bit more. I'm just going to have a quick look at the pad. Again, I don't feel like that's cutting through quite as much as I'd like it to in the mix, so let's just have a look at and see how that's sounding. So rather than turning up the volume of the pad, I'm going to roll back the reverb so it's not pushed as far back into the mix. But then it's quite a trebly harsh sound, so I'm just going to roll back some of the EQ in terms of those mid-range frequencies, just to soften it a little bit. And I'm going to pan the pad just off to the left to give it a bit of space in the mix. Fantastic. The next thing I'm going to have a look at is just some of those higher range frequencies. So let's have a look at the hi-hats and see how they're working. Again, we could probably do with just increasing the high end on that. And again, I'm just going to pan those hi-hats off to the left. Actually, let's have them going off to the right because we've got the closed hi-hats going off to the left-hand part of the stereo mix. That seems to be cutting through a little bit more in the mix. Okay, so that's the hats done. Let's have a look at some of these synthesizers next. So we're going to have a look at the bass synth, the acid house synth, the trans synth, and the LFO synth. Let's have a quick look at the bass synth to begin with. I think the first thing is we've got the same note pattern throughout the song for the bass synth, so I'm just going to go in and mix that up a little bit, and then we can cut and paste different parts of that, the different patterns, the different bass synth patterns across the track, just to add a little bit more variety into the song. Let's just roll that back because we're leading with a loop of the bass there. Let's just try something like this. just solo that and see how that sounds. So that sounds really nice with the guitars, actually, that section. So I'm going to copy and then paste that across, and I think we'll have it in that final section as well. And just adds a little bit more variety, and I think we'll have it in there as well. So we're having something slightly different at the start, then for when the guitars kick in it will change. We'll continue that pattern, drop back into the original pattern, and then go to that second alternative pattern for the last section of the song. It doesn't feel like the bass synth is quite cutting through. So I think in hindsight now, or in retrospect, I'm going to take the reverb off it just so it cuts through the song a little bit more. Let's just see what effect that has. Yeah, that's had the right effect. I think that was the right thing to do. The reverb was pushing it a little bit too far into the mix. It needs to be quite a solid sound that's cutting through with the kick. Okay, on to the trans synth next, and this is starting to feel like it's dominating the track quite a lot. So I think what I'm going to do is roll that out of certain sections, just to give the track some space. So I'm not going to have it coming in until further into the song. So if we just expand the track, we can actually start to see the different sections a little bit more. So I'm going to take it out of those first bits and have it perhaps coming in a little bit later. Let's just see how that works. Okay, and then take it out of the next section. Perhaps have it coming back in. Actually, let's just have that there. Have it coming out of that. Perhaps have it coming back in here as part of that build up. Dropping back out. And then having it coming back in for the last part of the song. So that's probably going to have quite a radical effect on the sound of the track, because it was applied throughout the song and it was actually dominating the track. So I think let's just have a quick listen to that and see if that makes a difference to the sound. Okay, so I'm just really building up the track instrument by instrument there, so I think that was the right thing to do. Let's have a quick look at that section of the trans synthesizer. Again, it's not really cutting through the mix, so I think what we need to do is bring it up a little bit more so that we're not interfering with those lower frequency ranges. Increase the high end on it, but then soften it off a little bit in those mid to high ranges. Let's have a quick listen to that and see what impact that has. really cool with the trans synth to add an LFO onto it. So let's do that quickly now. Let's just get the trans synth up. Okay, and then right at the end. So if you remember the video on adding in an LFO, you add in an EQ8, which is essentially what the LFO is going to filter. Then you're going to max for life, max audio effect, and we're going to drop in a couple of LFOs that are going to modulate at different frequencies. That we need to turn into a bell. That we need to turn into what's known as a notch. And then you map them. So you click on that and map it to that, and then click on that and map it to that. And I think we'll just change the rate right down on these. We don't want it going too crazy, and probably roll off the depth a little bit as well. Let's just have a quick look and listen to that, see how that sounds. Cool, okay, that's sounding nice and squelchy with the LFO on it. And the final two things we're going to have a look at is the acid house and the other LFO synth. So let's go into the acid house. Let's have a quick listen to how that's sounding. Push that back into the mix again, I think, a little bit more with the a bit of reverb added onto it. And we don't actually have an EQ on this. That's something we must have missed from the previous video, so let's drop in an EQ. And again, we're going to apply a high pass filter and have that set quite high so that it's pushing that sound into the upper frequency range of the track, but also apply a high cut as well at around 10 kilohertz. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, that's sounding great. And as you see, in terms of actually getting it more prominent in the mix, we were using some of the effects to do that rather than the volume of it. So we were looking at using the reverb and the EQ, just moving those around just to enable it to have its own space in the mix rather than turning the volume up, which then means you then throw everything else out of balance. So that's the LFO. Sorry, that's the acid house synth. Now we're going to finish off by having a look at the LFO. So again, let's just see how that's cutting through in that part of the song. Okay, so I think it'd be really cool to just have that at a higher octave and just see if that has a slight impact on the sound. I'm going to detune it. And I'm just going to increase the amount of G-tuning on the unison as well. Let's just have a play of that. So again, I'm just thinking we've increased the octave range, but I don't want it coming out in those higher frequencies. So I've just rolled back some of those higher frequencies by applying a high cut filter on it. And I think we need to pan it a little bit in the mix. So I think we'll work with this. I kind of see this as part of that stereo mix alongside the pad. So I think we need to roll it off to the right in the stereo mix again, just to give it a bit of space. And let's see have a quick listen to that and see how that sounds. Okay, cool. As we were playing that back, I realised there was a note that was slightly out of time, so I've just rectified that and then copied and pasted that across all the other sections that we had the LFO in. And I have actually rolled the frequencies back to those higher ranges because I think it was sounding really cool. I think we're almost there. The final thing to do now is just to apply some gentle mastering to the track. So we're going to do that by going to the mastering channel and dropping some mastering effects in. The first thing we're going to put in is a utility, and we're going to turn on bass mono. The next thing we're going to do is put in a multi-band dynamic compressor. Drop that in. And just group, if we can just drop those in. Like that. The next thing, with that, we'll turn the time up to 1000 and the amount down to 10. We're then going to put in a standard multi-band dynamic compression effect, which we'll just drop in if it'll let me. And again, time up to 1000, amount down to 10. And then finally, the standard multi-band compressor. So again, just drop that in. Time up to 1000. Amount down to 10. And what these are doing is they're compressing the sound and then binding it together with this very gentle, soft touch mastering that we're applying to the track. Let's play that back and see how that sounds. Oops, there we go. Cool. The final thing I'm just going to do is there's a really nice guitar effect that's occurring when we loop that just capturing that last note. So I'm just going to see if that will work, copied and pasted into certain other sections of the song. Ooh, it's just going to see if it's going to paste it. Has it pasted it? copy, that's it, copy and paste. And again, let's just see if that works. Great stuff. I think I must have done some chopping around on those other bits, so I'm just going to copy it, drag that across. I think that was moved. Not quite what I did there. See how that sounds, just cutting and pasting that little guitar note into that breakdown bit. Fantastic. And then the final thing I'm going to do is just look at the drum and the kick aspect of the drums and just put some additional notes in some of those build up and breakdowns, so that we can actually just build the track up and have it just launching in a little bit more. So it's just copy that, and then it can just drop in a few more kick notes. Oops, that's probably in the wrong bit. No, that's fine. It's just how that sounds. So I think this is something you could probably do with the track now, if you just wanted to finish it off in your own time, but essentially adding in further notes into various parts of the kick just to build up and drop down those different sections of the song. Fantastic. That ends the song, that ends the video, and that finishes off the song. It's probably just a little bit over 100 minutes, but I hope that gives you an idea of how you go about creating a dance track using Ableton, putting in different synthesizers, how you structure the song. And what I'll do is I'll record another video where we're playing the song through in its entirety. So thank you for watching. If you found this useful, please like the content and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in the next video.